So let's get started building out our application. So for this tutorial, you'll need your terminal, you'll need Sublime Text, and also a browser. I'm using Google Chrome. The text editor I'm using is Sublime Text. You can use any editor, and I'm using the terminal. So let's get started. Let's jump into a directory I created, Ruby on Rails. And your terminal might not necessarily look like mine, but that's totally fine. So now let's run a command to create our Rails application. So it'll be Rails new, and the name I'm going to go for will be Cabinet. This creates essentially the shell of our application for us. There's a lot of functionality that comes out straight out of the box. It creates all these directories and files for us, and at the very end it also runs bundle install to fetch all the gems that will be needed to successfully run our application. So when that's complete, we'll cd into the file that was created, and then we'll run Rails server. So this runs our application on the local machine. We can work on taking this live later on, but for now we'll only be focused on localhost 3000. Let's copy this and go into our browser. And when we refresh, it shows us that we've successfully launched our Rails application, gives us some information about version, which is not something we're really interested in at this point. So let's go back into our application and leave this running on one of the tabs. Let's cd into Cabinet here in another tab, and let's git init so we can begin tracking our application. And then let's do git status actually to see all the changes that have been added to our app. And then let's git add all, and then git commit with the message initial commit. Perfect. So right now we're in our Cabinet directory. We can do Sublime dot to open our application in Sublime Text. These are essentially the different, we'll be spending most of our time in the app file working on our views, the model, and the controller of our application. We'll also spend some time, but just a little bit, in the config directory working with our routes, and then also the gem files, which is where we'll spend another significant portion of our time. So right now, before we begin working on adding any features to our application, remember that there's a static page to the app. It's like a marketing page where we'll try to tempt people to sign up for our application. Let's work on that right now. And to do that, let's go back into our terminal, and we need to create that one file. It's a static page. There will be no dynamic content on our static page. To create a static page, we can simply run the command. Let's actually clean this out by holding command and then hitting K. Rails generate controller, and the name of the controller we'll go for is welcome, and then index. And I'll explain exactly why I'm adding index here. This creates the controller, and if you want to create a view file in Rails, you must first create a controller for it. You must define the action of the view file in the controller, and that enables that view file to be rendered in our application. We're working on the welcome controller, and we've just added the index action. The reason we're adding the index action here is so that when we run this command, it also creates the view file for us, index.html.erb. That's going to be the static page, the welcome page essentially for our application. So let's run this command, and let's see the different files and directories that have been created for the app. It also creates the tests, and we're not worried about that. Also a style sheet file, but the most important part is these two right here. So there's a view directory welcome, and there's also the index.html.erb that's also been created for us. Also keep in mind that the route has been created, the welcome route, the welcome controller index action route. So let's go back into our application and see what's been created for us. If we go into config routes, we can actually get rid of all these comments. They're useful if you want to read them, but they'll just distract us, so let's get rid of them. So we have the get welcome index, and if we go into rake routes, actually in our terminal routes, we'll see that our application just has this one route that has just been created. It's the welcome index. It's welcome controller index action. If you want localhost 3000 /welcome /index is how you'd get there. So let's actually do that. /welcome index. And this takes us to the directory that we just created, and this is the welcome index. So this is going to be our static page. We're going to have quite a bit here to tempt people to sign up for our application. Let's go back into Sublime Text. There's actually one important step that we need to Sublime Text is to make sure that this welcome index, instead of going to welcome/index, we want it to be the root of our application. So to do that, you go root, welcome controller, index action. Let's save this. If we go back into our browser, get rid of this, and refresh, it's still our welcome index. And that's exactly what we want. So when someone goes, in our case, to, let's imagine, cabinet.com, we want them to land on our marketing page. We don't want them to go to a different directory. So we've set localhost our welcome page as our root directory. We now want to just simply go back and check out the controller that was created in the index action in our welcome controller. This is what that adding the index to that command created this method for us. And defining index enables us to work with the view file for index, which is index.html.erb. And the file, or what the content that was rendered on this page is this, essentially, is the welcome index and all that. We will completely change this page, obviously. We'll add a lot of our own information in the coming videos. So we've done quite a bit here. Let's go back into our terminal. Let's do git status to see the changes that we've made here. Git add, and then we'll do git commit with the message generate welcome controller. Perfect.